Welcome to PilgrimWay Live. Today we will be recording the first testimony of the show, which will be my testimony. Like the Bible says, you have to lead by example. So you can't have people give their testimony when I'm not willing to give mine. You will hear my story, and like we always say, we hope this will be a blessing to you. God bless and shalom. My name is Chris Chachi the Cam Gang. I'm originally from Cameroon, though I like to be specific. So how my whole journey started, originally, so I went to church one day. It was more about getting sick and tired of being sick and tired. Um, I went to church one day, and then I came back from church. We were talking about how God does all these miracles and all this healing and all these things He does for everybody. But then we didn't really have that. We were kind of struggling, having barely food to eat, couldn't barely provide for our survival of everything that we needed on a daily basis. So then I went home, I got mad, and then I just locked the room and went on my knees. That's when my part with God actually started, between like the one-on-one talk between me and God. And then that's when I prayed, and then I told Him, like, how come we are trying our best to live as Christians? Like, we pray, we fast, we don't do any evil things, we don't drink or anything like that. But then others that are doing all these things with your life seems to having a good life. It seems like something is wrong somewhere. So I told God, I'm like, so if I'm in high school right now, I need to know that you're actually alive, that God is talk about a church that is still alive, because if not, so what's the point? Maybe the Muslim, they have it right. Maybe the Hebrews have it right. Maybe people have it right, but maybe we are just in the wrong religion. Maybe because our God seems to be dead, or is not actually alive, or doing what he's supposed to be doing, or what you hear at church. And then, so I told him, I'm like, okay, so I want to leave this country to go study somewhere else, somewhere that would be better after I graduate. At that time, I was in high school. It was my last year of high school. So I prayed a prayer after church, and then I just left it at that. Then the same night, I had a dream where I was at the airport. It was with me, my mom, a couple of other family members. And then I thought we were going to give farewell to one of our family members, like one of my cousins or sister, anybody like that. And then I asked my mom, I was like, how come we're in the airport? Like, who is leaving? Who are we here to send off? And she turned around, she said, what are you talking about? You asked me earlier in the day that you wanted to leave the country, so you choose a destination and then I will make it happen. And then I woke up. Originally, I was planning to go to either Canada or China. For my goal was medical school. So then I instantly woke up. I don't know why. I just said USA. And then I was like, hold on. That was God in a dream, because I prayed earlier asking Him that I want to leave. I want to know that He's actual God, that we talk about a church, and that it's not just a lot of stories that is just passing around, and that He's actually not acting. So then I kept it in mind for quite a while, and then I was like, if it's Him, it's going to come to pass. I'm just going to watch, because this was when I was testing God. Like, I wanted to know that the God that we talk about, all this Jesus we hear about, is actually alive, and it's actually God. So then after high school, I took my national exam, everything went fine, and then I then applied for my bachelor's at Highlands University in Las Vegas, New Mexico. And then I got the admission, but then now it was the time to get the visa, get the plane ticket and everything else, which, I mean, we were broke, so I was like, well, I mean, if it's God, He's going to make a way. I'm not going to worry about anything. And then I went to the embassy, did the whole interview thing, and then got the visa. Now it's time now to show proof that you have the money to pay for school and also buy the flight ticket. But remember, at that time, we didn't have any money. Sometimes we didn't even have money for our own food. So I was like, well, if it's God, He's actually going to make a way. And then I remember it was the actual day I was supposed to travel. And we still didn't have any money for the flight ticket. And then my mom was freaking out. She was like, well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? All this. For me, I'm like, what? I'm not going to do anything. I mean, if it's actually God, He's going to make His word come to pass. If it was actually Him telling me that night in the dream that I was going to live, He's going to make His word come to pass. I don't have the means. I can't do anything. I was a teenager. I just finished high school. How am I going to get the money to pay for the flight ticket and show proof that I have money for my tuition or all that? I'm like, if it's God, it's going to come to pass. And then that same day, my flight, I think, was like at 10:30 or 11 p.m. We literally got out of the door. My mom was going from house to house, offices to offices, whatever friend she could remember that she had. She went and knocked on their door. And I literally saw people literally pitching in, like all the money that we needed for the flight ticket, for the school and everything that needed to show proof that we have. That money got gathered the same day. Like we didn't have any money from at 9 o'clock in the morning. We didn't have any money. By like 5 p.m., we got the money for the flight ticket, and then we ran to the agency. We bought the ticket, paid for the ticket right there, and then we ran now to the marketplace because I didn't have any suitcase either. So we went there. It was already closed. Shop was already closing down. Everything was already shutting down. So we just bought whatever suitcase was available. And then now we ran home, and then from there we just ran to the airport straight away. It was like within like 2-3 hours. I had to like buy a suitcase, put whatever clothes I had left as fast as I could, and then rush to the airport. And then I get to the airport. I was like, wow, I mean, it looks like God is God because I mean He made a way. Money came through where we didn't have any money, and I was actually living, which I told him I needed to live. I need to see that He's actually God and He actually support people that decide to serve Him, because I was tired of always trying to serve this Jesus. They talk about Jesus I believe in, but then life is too crappy. So then at the airport, a lot of people were asking me, they're like, "You're living the whole country all by yourselves. How are you going to live? How are you going to survive? How are you going to eat? Where are you going to sleep? Where are you going to..." All these things, like I had nothing figured out. I'm like, well, I mean, I'm not going alone. I'm going with my co-pilot. I mean, Jesus is going with me. It's not like I'm living in country by myself. I mean, I didn't make the money to live, so He will also provide the means to keep me safe. So then the school was in Las Vegas, New Mexico, and then back home, I mean, we never know that it was to Las Vegas anyway. So we bought the ticket for Las Vegas, Nevada, thinking it was New Mexico. And then at the airport, my uncle gave me $200, 200 euros, because that's what he had. He had euros, and then it was just cash. I just had it with me as I traveled. And then when I got down to Las Vegas, Nevada, and then I got out of the airport, I'm like, oh wow, this city is so beautiful. I'm like, man, this is where I'm gonna go to school. Remember, I'm leaving from where I was to here now. I was like, man, this thing's amazing. This is where I'm gonna go to school. And then like there were all these like limousines parked in front of the airport. For me, I just came to the US. I was like, oh, I guess there are taxis. So I take my suitcase, I just up one of the limousines, and then I just jump in the limousine. I'm like, oh, I'm going to this address. The guy look at me first. It's like, where you come from? You just entering people's limousine. For me, I thought it was taxis because they were all lined up in front of the airport. And then he said, I'm like, I need to go to this place. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm going to school. I just came here. I need to go to this place. I give him the address. And then he's like, this is not here. This is in New Mexico. You are in Nevada. I didn't know the difference between states and cities. I mean, I just came. For me, Las Vegas was just Las Vegas. Then he's like, oh no, you have to go back to the airport. And then now they will help you out to make sure you go to the right address. So I took all my bags again, went back to the front desk of the airport, and then I told the lady at the front desk, I'm like, okay, so I'm supposed to be here. It says Las Vegas, but that the guy in the limousine just told me that I'm not in the right place. Then that's when she told me, she's like, oh, you're actually supposed to book your flight ticket to Albuquerque, and then from Albuquerque now take the train now to Las Vegas, New Mexico. So you're in a completely different state. I was like, oh my God. It's funny how God works. I still had those 200 euros with me. So that's literally what I used to buy the flight ticket I needed now to move from Nevada, Las Vegas to Albuquerque, New Mexico. So then when I take down the flight, so I had to sleep at the airport. I mean, and I just came here, so I slept at the airport in the morning. Then I took the flight down to Albuquerque, New Mexico. I still didn't know where I was. So then from there, I asked for some directions, and then now I was able to get now the Amtrak from Albuquerque now to Las Vegas, New Mexico. And then when I get there, one of my teachers back home still had a friend going to school there at New Mexico Highlands University, and then that's how he picked me up from the airport. Like, and I didn't know anybody. And then after I get settled on and everything seems to have gone fine. I've made it to the U.S. I'm now going to school and everything. Now comes now the time now to now actually pay for school to support yourself to be able to survive and all that. And I mean, as an international student, you can't get any loan. You have to find a way to make your own means. And the reason why I chose Las Vegas, Mexico, was because it was inexpensive. I could be able to, let's say, work and then pay for school while going to school. I mean, the first year was rough and all that. I mean, a couple of times I remember me and my roommate, we used to work at the cafeteria, and then and the first semester or so, they were able to let us like take whatever leftovers they had at the caf home, and that's what we sometimes use as our like food. And then one time they stopped it. They were like, oh, because for safety reasons, in case someone gets sick, then they don't want to be liable, so they stopped letting us take food. So what we will do is that because we were dishwashers at the cafeteria of the school. So when it's the evening, it's time to close, we have to gather whatever leftovers and go and throw it in the trash, in the trash can outside. So what we will do is that we will put the leftovers in like trash bags, and then like we will double bag the leftovers. We'll make as if we're going to throw the bags in the trash can, but we'll just put it on the side. And then we'll go home, make as if we are leaving to go home. And then once everyone is gone, then we'll just rush back, like around like 11 p.m. or like midnight, rush back and take the food, and then I'll now take it home, and then I will put it in the freezer. And then that's what we will eat for a couple of days. And then sometimes, now we look back and we laugh. But sometimes, I remember we used to rush to like, it was either Walmart or Lowe's, where like the chicken that would expire the same day was the cheapest one. That's what we will buy, and then we'll rush home and freeze it. That way it doesn't get bad. And all these stories now, look back now, I can laugh. But back then it was survival mode. Like you didn't know what was going to go on or how you're going to survive or how life was going to be. And then I remember one time after my roommate did graduate, I didn't have money for rent. And then I think this happened twice. And then I prayed. I'm like, God, I don't have any money for rent. I mean, all the money I worked, I used for school, I paid for bills and all this. I'm like, I don't have any money for rent, and I'm gonna get kicked out. If I get kicked out, I don't know how I'm gonna survive. So then I just prayed, and then I left it at that. I just went to school. And then I remember twice. One time I remember it was the same day I prayed. And then I was walking down from the caf back to my apartment. And then as I was leaving the science building, and then I just saw like $200 that's lying on the floor by the door. I'm like, hold on. I'm like, okay. I'm like, maybe it's somebody's money. And then I don't want to take it. And then someone's like, oh, I lost my money. And then someone ends up getting hurt. So I leave the money there as I'm walking home. Somebody tell me, didn't you just pray earlier today that you didn't have money for rent? How come now I give you money and then you just leave it there? I'm like, oh, maybe it's just me. I'm just making stuff in my own head. Let me just keep walking. I walk all the way home. I get home. And then I'm like, oh, somebody's like, oh, that was God's money. I prayed for rent today and I didn't have any money. So I run back to the science building. The money was still there on the floor. So I take the money and then I just stay around now. I just wait to see if someone will just come, like, you know how people lose money? They'll come and be looking on the floor trying to see if they lost anything. So I waited for about 30 minutes and then no one shows up. So I left, I went home. And I used that money to pay rent. The same thing happened another time. The same thing happened again, but at this time now, now the rent now was $300, and then I got the $300. And this time it was behind the cafeteria, and then I did the same thing too. And that's how I paid for rent for like a couple of months when I didn't have any money. And then those are one of the things how, I mean, that's when they say God will provide. Is crazy to think that, but he comes up in weird ways, really, really weird ways. And the other one now was when I was applying for scholarship. So I just came. I didn't know anybody. I was just like a student, like a regular student, young boy, just going to school, minding his business. I was applying for scholarships here and there. I was trying to get as much as I could. I was eligible to, let's just say that. And then come to find out, two of the girls that were on the scholarship committee, I mean, they were not my friends. I knew them, and because you know people down in school, like, oh yeah, that person is named this. Oh yeah, I see them around. But now they approached me later. They would tell me that, oh, are you aware that we are on the scholarship committee and we'll be fighting on your behalf to get all the scholarships you've been getting? These are people. I mean, I knew them. They were, I won't say friends because I wasn't really tied to them as yet, as maybe like how friends grow. At that time, we were between like acquaintances to friends. We were still growing to get to know each other and all that. So, telling you that even though you don't know what is going on, in the background already, God was already working behind the scenes, having people already fighting on my behalf that I didn't even know that well. They were just fighting on my behalf, and then I got all the scholarships without me even having to do anything. All I had to do was apply and just believe. And then God went about His ways and just He just does what He does, like in the background. So then that's part of the whole story of undergrad and then coming to the US. That was now the goal after I graduated. Now I wanted to go to med school. That was my goal all along. So at the beginning, because I had to take the MCAT and all that. So at the beginning, I tried to take it in the summer, like the 2 summers before I graduated. At that time, I was working full time because I needed to make some money to pay for school. At that point, now I tried to take the MCAT, but then I didn't pass because I was working full time, so I didn't really have any time to study. I was studying like 2 or 3 hours a day, which was not close to being enough. So then now after I did graduate, UNM had this program called the MCAT Plus program. I applied to that, I mean, hoping because they had a stipend. My goal was if they have a stipend, maybe now I don't have to work while I'm studying for the MCAT, and then I can actually study well enough to pass the MCAT and use the money they will give us a stipend to pay for rent, eat, and hopefully have enough to pay for the MCAT, for the MCAT exam. And then I applied, and then I didn't hear anything after I graduate. Usually you have like 3 months after you graduate to get a job or do something forward before you start getting the email for deportation if you don't do anything further. And then it was very close to the 3 months, and I remember walking down, going home. I was like, "Well, God, I mean, if it looks like this is the end, I mean, you provided all this time and applied for you, and I didn't hear anything, so I guess I won't be able to take the MCAT. I don't know what I'm gonna do next." And then on the next day, I was walking home. UNM called me because I applied for 2 programs. It was the MCAT Plus program and then the clinical. I think it was clinical education, something like that. That helps you get clinical experience and for letters of recommendation for medical school. And then the MCAT Plus was just like it says. It was a study for the MCAT. It will help you with the books and the stipend and all that. So I applied for both, but I didn't hear anything yet. So I was like, well, I guess I didn't get any of them. Come to find out that they called me, they were like, "Oh, by the way, Chris, you got into both programs, so you choose which one you want." And then I was like, "Oh my God, you're funny." And then I already got my letters from my other doctors I work with from Highlands and the veterinarian. So I was like, "Oh, I want to take the MCAT one because I don't have the money for the MCAT and I need time to study, and they were going to sponsor me for that." So I got into the MCAT Plus program. That was one of the obstacles were already out of the way. Now I had to move to Albuquerque to do the program. I didn't have any place to stay here. And then a church member from Calvary in Las Vegas, New Mexico, it's not linked to the Calvary here, it's just a different church. It's just for Calvary too. In Las Vegas, New Mexico, he hosted a previous Cameroonian Jew in his house, and he connected me to him. And him and his wife are the one that hosted me when I came to Albuquerque originally. So I was doing the MCAT Plus program and I was staying at their house for free, which helped me save a lot of money. And in that way, I was able to use that money now for the food and also to pay for the MCAT exam actually, and then have some money left over to survive for a little bit in between. So that's how God provided for the MCAT Plus program. Now, after that, to achieve the MCAT Plus program, but then I didn't really know yet where I was going to go to medical school. Like, that was my goal. God told me I was going to travel. I traveled. God told me I was going to graduate. I did finish. So now I didn't know where I was going to go to school. So I started praying because I wanted to go to UNM. Originally, not because it was my original goal, but because so when I was at Highlands, people always used to say, like, teachers, students, even recruiters, sometimes from UNM, they'll come, they'll be telling you, like, well, oh, it's hard to get into UNM as an international student because UNM, the med school, want people from New Mexico because they are more likely to stay in New Mexico. They want doctors from New Mexico. And most likely from here. That is even harder for people from out of state to get into UNM medical school. So at one point I got annoyed to keep hearing that, and I got pissed because I knew what God did for me, He could do it again. Not only for me, for other people too. So now my goal changed to I wanted to get into UNM, not because that's where I wanted to go, but because I wanted to show people that God can still do whatever He can do. And that is not impossible. That way people stop saying that, and people, because the more they were saying it, the more other students believe it. And no one really applied to UNM med school because they kept hearing the same thing over and over and over. So then that's when I started praying towards that. I'm like, God, I want to get into UNM. That's where I want to go. And then in the middle of the MCAT Plus program, before I took the MCAT, then I had another dream again where I was working at the plaza of the UNM Med School. And the plaza, it was going towards the hospital. Is the plaza in front of Fitz Hall, Fitz Building. I think that's what it's called. And then in that dream, I looked down. In my hand, I had a UNM student ID. And then I woke up. For me, it was like, well, if God gives me a student ID from UNM, it means I'm going to get into UNM. That's when I'm going to go to med school because I wasn't a student there. I didn't have a student ID from there yet. So if I have a student ID from UNM, means that's where I'm going. So from there on out, people would ask me, oh, where are you going to go to med school? I'm like, UNM. And they ask me, how do you know? Have you taken the MCAT yet? I'm like, no. Have you applied yet? I'm like, no. But that's what God said. That's what I started testifying. So I just stick to the story. And then now I applied to UNM just to test it out. I applied to other places too. And then I got into UNM waiting list. I was like, wow, I'm on the waiting list. I was freaking out, like, oh, so I'm not gonna get in. I'm not gonna get in, or am I gonna get in? And then I remembered, I'm like, no, God said I'm gonna get in. So even though I was freaking out, I'm like, calm down. God said you will get in. Just chill out. You will get in. And then I ended up getting into UNM. I mean, I didn't get into any of the other schools I applied, and I got into UNM. That's what He said. That's where I was. So then that's when I got into UNM med school. Now, back to the whole financial thing again. Med school is pretty expensive. And as a student that cannot apply for any loans, your other option is to find a co-signer, which is almost impossible. No one will be willing to co-sign for you for med school because if something goes wrong, they will have to pay for it. So I couldn't find a co-signer. I couldn't find any way to pay for school. And then now the school started. I kind of tried to figure things out on my own, tried to work here and there, but I couldn't do anything. It wasn't nearly enough to what was needed. And then so I remember I got the letter from the immigration because I think I had to like Friday to show that I have proof to be able to support myself for school. And if by Friday I don't show that proof, I don't have the money, then I'm gonna get deported because you can't pay for school. So it kind of voids your student visa. So then I was praying about, like, I remember it was a Wednesday, and we usually had exams every week. So I was like, and I had to study. So I remember going on a Wednesday. I remember I was in my apartment. I started crying and laughing. I was like, man, because I did everything I could. God, I did everything I could. Either you're gonna show up, or everything is just gonna fall apart. And then we had an exam. I was like, wait, why am I sitting here crying? I did all I can because I can either sit here and cry and don't study and keep thinking about that. What if on Friday God comes through? But then I spent all my time crying. I didn't study. I'm going to fail the exam that's going to come up on Monday. I think it was Monday or Friday because I didn't study. Even though he came through, I would have failed compared to if I believe that he will come through, and then I study in preparation for that, and then if it comes through, I will be ready. I'll take my exam, I'll pass it, and then we'll move forward. So I had to prepare myself, believing that he will show up, and I had to do my part of the job, which is studying. That's my part of the job. So then I just studied, and then I emailed like the whole, I think it was like the whole director, the whole hospital directory I could find online for UNM, telling them, oh, I have to Friday if anyone can find a way for me not to get deported. I wasn't asking for help. And then I just studied. I was freaking out still, but I was studying with freaking out at the same time. And then on Friday, when I was in class, my phone rings. It's the school financial aid office. They're like, get you as soon as you can. So I was like in the middle seat of the row. And then I was jumping over all the students. I was running to the financial aid office. So when I got there, and they were like, oh, so we got your email you sent a couple of days ago. We've been working in the background. So I couldn't get any medical school loans. So they were like, so we're going to help you we're going to give you a loan. The condition is that you keep your grades up. So that was the condition. So the school actually gave me a loan, even though I wasn't eligible for federal loan. That way I don't get deported. So then I got the loan, everything was good. For that semester, I was like, oh, thank God for that. But again, the other part of that is that I knew the God I serve. God doesn't do things halfway. He doesn't. And for me, I was like, God, you know I don't like loans. I don't like loans. I know you. I was expecting him to do some. When he starts a job, he finishes it. He doesn't do things halfway. So I was kind of mad about the loan because I wanted, why can't you just give me a scholarship? Why don't you give me a loan? But I'm still going to be thankful for that. I'm not going to be ungrateful. I'm like, thank you for what you do. But I still believe that you can do what you can do. So then the semester went ahead, and then I finished the semester. And then now the next semester coming up, when I go back to the financial aid office to sign the documents for the loan for that semester, he tells me, like, oh, by the way, we forgot to tell you. The loan that we gave you last semester, now we converted it now to a scholarship. Now you don't have to pay for it. Now your school is pretty much free. I was like, that's the God I serve, baby. When he starts, he finishes. As long as you don't give up and you keep doing your own part of the job, he will do what he does best. Like I couldn't contain my joy. I was just keeping myself calm. As soon as I got out of the office, I shouted, that is the God I serve. That is my Jesus. So now there's this international student going to medical school in a school that they said it was almost impossible for him to get in. Going to school now, for the rest of the school at least, now for free. When other people that he was looking, because I remember one time I was going to school and then I was back to class. I was kind of annoyed. I was sad because I remember that morning, I didn't have any breakfast because I didn't have money to get breakfast. So I was back in school. My stomach was like growling. I was like, man, this sucks. I'm here trying to struggle, go to med school and working my butt off. And I had classmates that would come to school, like driving cars, no biking. They would come with like breakfast and lunch. They'll have granola and then yogurt. I was like, man, how come why is life so unfair? This just sucks. I'm like, why am I even going through all this? And then now I was in the other spectrum. Now I didn't have to pay any tuition. So at this point now, my tuition was covered, thanks to Jesus. But I still had to work 2 jobs to 3 while in med school to be able to at least pay for stuff and survive. And then that came with its own part of difficulties and consequences, because in med school, after you fail a couple of exams, then they either have to kick you out or you just put on your leave of absence and then just come back the next year. So, but for me, it wasn't going to do anything because for me, it was either get kicked out, because even if I'm on a leave of absence, I mean, I'm going to get deported because the same issue doesn't get resolved. It's still I will still have the same difficulties. So then, So then I had a meeting with the school where where the plan was to do an appeal to see if they could let me just retake my exams and keep going with school. That way I don't get deported. And then usually they don't approve those kind of things. So I was freaking out again. I was praying. I was like, God, because if they kick me out, what's going to happen? And everyone was like, because those are the only choices you have. Either you leave med school or like kick you out, or you're gonna be on leave of absence and then come back next year. Stop and come back next year. So I was praying about it. I'm like, God, I can't do any of those things. My only way is just to stay in school. I don't know how I'm gonna do that. So then I had to. I'm like, if that's the only option, I'm gonna just give an appeal for them to let me go in school. Even though it's probably not going to happen, but I can't just stop here. I can't just let it end here. So then I prayed about it, and then I had another dream again. So in the dream, it was the meeting with the school finished, and then someone came behind my ear and told me, Chris, they approved your request. And then I woke up. So then for me, I was like, okay, God already said yes. I shouldn't be afraid of asking or afraid of my requesting. But again, you can't even though God tell you yes, you cannot go into a meeting boasting or being arrogant, because if not, things are gonna go south. So then now I met with the school. I was like, well, I did the proposition. I'm like, how about instead of you guys kicking me out or me coming back next year, because I'm just gonna have the same issue. It's not gonna resolve anything that has been going on. How about we make a deal? Let me keep continuing, and then if I don't pass this current course right now, I think the deal was if I could not pass it with a 95% or above, then they would just kick me out. I'm like, how about we do that deal? That way, you put my own life into my own hands, compared to you maybe feeling like, oh, you kicked out an international student that was already struggling and all this. Let me have my own life in my own hands. And they agreed to the deal. We're like, okay, yeah. So if you don't have a 95% or above in that course that semester, you're gone to medical school. You're gone. I was like, okay, good. So they approved the deal, and I come to find out that course ended, the semester ended, and then I got the 95 like exactly. Now I was allowed to keep on going to medical school, continue medical school, and then was able to retake those exams in the summer, and then I passed them, and then I kept moving forward. But again, that doesn't solve the issue. Like, I still have to work through medical school and all that. And then the same thing came again with step 1 and step 2, because originally I was like, well, I'm gonna have the same studying issue because it doesn't solve anything. But then God, at that time, God, I already had a dream where it was after graduation, and my mom was here to visit. So for me, I was like, God already said I'm going to graduate. It doesn't matter what happens, I'm going to graduate. All I can do is just not give up. So then I just believed, and then I failed step 1, but then after I just didn't give up, and then I passed it. And then the next one, I was step 2. Same thing happened, and then I just didn't give up, because I believe what God said. Doesn't matter what happens, I'm going to get to the finish line. And then I just kept studying, and then I passed step 2. Now I'm at a point now to get ready for residency, and now at this point now, I'm still going by faith. Like, it's ridiculous, because now thank God I was able to finish med school with just the loan I got at first. I was able to work since I finished. I was able to pay it off, thank God. So now I'm debt free, pretty much. Like, I'm a med student that's finished that's going to residency without any loan on his head. That's a huge blessing. So that's pretty much how my story has begun and where it's at now. We're not near the end. There's still much more I know God will do. But again, like, if God can do that for me, what can He do for you? Like, I'm nothing special. I'm a broke kid from Cameroon that had nothing. Literally, I didn't even have the money for a plane ticket. I had nothing. But again, if he could do that for me and kept me safe all this time, I mean, I'm not special. He's still the same God for everybody. As long as you come to him like I came to him, he might even do more for you. Who knows? The whole goal of this whole testimony is that you can see that God is still God, and the Jesus we talk about is not just the story you hear or the things you read in the Bible. He's actually alive. I mean, look at where I am. I came here with 200 bucks, 200 euros in my pocket. I landed in the wrong city. I finished med school. I paid off my loans. I mean, like, what can you say? What can you say at this point that God can do? At least for me, He can do everything. So I mean, I hope that with this, you, no matter where you are right now, even if you're an international student like me, and you wonder how we be able to provide even to apply for med school, or whatever you try to do, if you know God is with you, go for it. Pray about it. If He confirms it, you go for it. All He asks us is just to believe, just have faith. I mean, the rest we can do our best. We're still humans, but after that, I mean, it's in God's hands. So hopefully you get blessed by this, and maybe we'll hear a testimony someday of what God can do in your life too. God bless. Sure.